Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure you
Yes,
can
sir.
hear me. I'm back now.
Yes, sir.
एक मिनिट हं.
पाटील सर, US पाटील सर, उदय.
हा येस
उदय.
येस
हा,
हॅलो.
सर जॉईन झालेत. सर जॉईन झालेत.
ओके ओके स्टार्ट करतोय आपण 2 मिनिटं. ओके.
यस यस.
Good afternoon, sir. Hello. Patil sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good morning for me.
Yeah, it's good morning for you.
Yes.
So, can we start, sir?
Okay. So,
Just a minute, sir.
okay.
We'll just have a formal session for 2 minutes only, and
No
then
problem.
then you can start sharing your presentations.
Sure. Please give me a sign once.
Yeah, definitely, sir. Definitely. Yes, sir. Sneha. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm hereby to introduce you to the next speaker, Mr. Bhausaheb Patil, Senior Director, Clinical Quality Management, Quintels, IQVIA, UK. He has completed his B.Pharm from Shivaji University, Kolhapur, M.Pharm from Birla Institute of Technology, and Middle Management Development Program from Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. He has been working for industry as a director of clinical operations, head of clinical operations quality management Asia, global head and senior director of clinical site monitoring quality management, and senior director of clinical quality management. He has 25 years of experience. He has been involved in research or clinical monitoring and operations, project management, quality management, and he has a humble career journey in clinical research from a local clinical trial assistant to the global role to promote the patient safety, data integrity, and regulatory compliance. So we would like to welcome a clinical researcher leader, Mr. Bhausaheb Patil, who always connect the data to get better insights and process the information through deep learning. We wish him to address the participants of this FDP on application of artificial intelligence and machine learning in clinical research. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I think before I make a start, and just give me just a few seconds to share my presentation. Uh, Please let me know if you can screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'm going to reshare because I would like to
Yes.
share a desktop. So can you see my screen now?
No, not now.
Yes.
It's visible now,
Yes.
sir.
Okay. So, and my voice is also audible, right?
Audible, sir.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. I know it's late afternoon for you, early morning for me here in the UK. Uh, I have a few slides, and madam, before we start, I have about hour and a half for this presentation. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so what I want to do, I think the topic which I'm going to talk about is the artificial intelligence and machine learning, which are the buzzwords these days, how they relates to clinical research. But quite honestly, I'm not going to limit my talk just to clinical research. It will be a little broader, and I hope to give you insight how this artificial intelligence, machine learning concepts, they are being applied or they are being thought of its application across the industry. So within that talk, I will also try and give you a quick flavor of where this is being tried. And I think second, most of my slide, very honestly, I have prepared it yesterday and today morning. So it is going to be a impromptu talk. Usually, I think this is almost like my sixth or seventh presentation for various pharmacy institutions in India, and then a couple in Asia Pacific. Uh, so I would like to make this talk more interactive than just me talking for the next 90 minutes and you listening. Especially with the challenges of this COVID pandemic. This is even challenging, wherein we are sitting across 1,000 miles away, and not in a classroom type of environment, which would be more engaged. But hopefully, I think this is also part of the artificial intelligence application. So what I want to do, before I make a start, if you have any questions during the talk, please try and stop me. You feel free to ask questions, and also, madam, in case if you get any questions on the chat, feel free to stop me and ask. We will see, if there are more questions, we will keep at the end. But if there are a couple of questions, I'm happy to answer, and I think that way we can make it more interacting. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah, sure, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, sure, sir.
Perfect. Yeah. So so let's please go ahead. I think you have a question.
Hello, sir.
Yes. Okay.
At a lower right corner of the screen, there is small
Yeah.
window. You can make it aside.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Is it better now?
Okay, better.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so I think I just want to walk you through a quick journey, and I think all my talk is again linked to sort of artificial intelligence or machine learning. And I think if you look at the current scenario, which is the COVID pandemic, and I think that has hit not just one country but whole world uh, very badly, unfortunately. And I think it has impact on the personal health. It has impact on the financials. People are losing their jobs, unfortunately, and it has impact on the next generation. And I think this is I have always I was just reading a note from the WHO director yesterday, and I think sadly what we are also beginning to find the impact of COVID, it's just not for the time being when the person gets infected with the COVID virus. And there are some early signs where we are seeing those who have been infected from COVID and then getting recovered. There are also, unfortunately, some long-term implications, such as people are still having fatigue. They are not active as they used to be before COVID. In some cases, there is short-term memory loss. Of course, I think we should not get frightened with that, but that just shows, how whole world can come to standstill. And but I think that is sort of on a negative side, but on the positive side, I will show you in my next few slides. I think that is where, if you look at the history of whole world in the last 100 years, when we had that Great Depression across the world in, I think around 1920. Then there was First World War around that time, the Second World War, 1940. Then I think we all have ourselves experienced the depression in 2008 because of collapse of financial system. So what has happened during those times, I think when things have become little difficult for everyone, that is where the innovation has started. It made people to think differently, out of the box. And I think this is where I feel on one hand, we have this great challenge of COVID pandemic. This is where we should probably take advantage of it, because it is making us to think differently. And this is where I think innovation will start, and that will hopefully protect the next generation. And I think how that relates to current scenario, I think everyone is studying from home. Everyone is still connected with the technology, and by that way, we are staying focused. These are also some of the applications of various innovation. You can talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning, how people are still staying connected. Just wanted to talk to you about what I want to contribute in my next sort of 80 minutes. As Madam I think nicely mentioned, so thank you very much for that nice introduction. And by the way, I also would like to thank I think Dr. Manish Bhatia, who kindly invited me. I'm not a great speaker as such, but I just want to talk my heart, and with my little bit of 25 years of experience in the field of clinical research, just want to transfer that experience, and hopefully each one of you can learn from that. And I think if I achieve that goal, I'll be very grateful. The reason being, I think like most of you, if not many, I have sort of raised myself. I come from a very humble background in a small village in the state of in Maharashtra, and I think still I think sort of raised through the ranks and managed to reach here. And I think that tells me if you want to aspire something very high, you do not need to be rich. You do not need to have in always a good background. If you have will, if you have passion, you can make it work in the way you want. And I think I experienced that myself, coming from that humble background, studying in small town, and working in one of not the biggest contract research organization of the world in India, who then gave me opportunity to hone my skills, by sending me to some of those management courses, and not only that, to in other countries. So had a pleasure of working in Singapore, managing Asia Pacific countries, and then sort of exploring how clinical research is conducted in Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and at the same time promoting clinical research in countries like Indonesia and Vietnam, which are sort of newer to that field compared to the other regions. So I think that also gave me a diversity of role. So right from clinical trial assistant, before that literally working in some of the pharmaceutical companies, right from sweeping the floor or cleaning the machine to now see how the new machines can be made. And I have to say, I think those multiple roles, multiple offices, different geography really gave me that exposure to think differently and push myself. And then I realized for learning there is no age limit. At any age of your life you still learn. So just now wanted to talk to you in terms of what keeps me busy and awake at night. Again, I think this is when we say busy and awake at night, most of the time you tend to think it is work. Of course, I think that is part of my late night work. But I think most important, what keeps me awake at night, it's my family and their upbringing. It's about, I also run for better health and getting better thoughts, because again, many times in the corporate world, I have realized you work long hours, and sometimes if you do not allow your mind to keep away from work, you do not get those innovative ideas, innovations. So you need to leave work for some time and do something which is completely different. And I have always found sometime when you leave work aside, go for a walk or maybe run and just look around the tree, and sometime the problem that you're trying to tackle in office for hours together or weeks together, you suddenly get some better idea, you come back home and your problem is solved. And believe me, I think it works. Sometimes you feel those two are not connected. I also watch cricket. I'm sure you all are. I think that's the the IPL 2020, and that is also one way for me to rejuvenate, make my mind fresh, and then go back to work. I also like to keep my house clean and workplace. So maybe on a typical weekend, you may find me in my house, sweeping or mopping the floor. It is not just because of the COVID pandemic, but I have been doing that all these years. And I think coming back to work, yes, I think quality and compliance metrics in clinical research, that is my forte. I do, and especially the field of clinical research is so fascinating. And if you look at the current pandemic, where everyone wants vaccine as of yesterday. And there is huge pressure from the government, also from the people, and from various companies to come up with something. So again, I think that is another area where customer management or managing customer complaint. That's another area. Conducting quality investigations. And I think what I'm going to talk more on the the data in analytics or insight. And I think this is an area, very frankly, as you all know, I think the pharmacy, we learn very little of mathematics, maybe during the first year, I think when I studied maybe 25 years back. But as I see right now, the application of domain knowledge, clinical research, and if you learn some of those advanced analytical techniques, that is one of the best area right now, I think, for any future generation to make positive impact and also enhance the academic, the professional growth. So we will spend some time on that. I also look at, I think, this cost of good quality or cost of poor quality. And I think these are the concepts you will learn. And what does that mean? Again, I think if you relate to clinical research, cost of good quality means, you will save lives of millions and millions of patients. If you are part of any clinical research program, if you contribute into the development in the best of your ability, if the molecule gets launched, you save lives of millions of patients, and those patients could be your dear one. It could be your parents, it could be your mother, father, sister, it could be your children, who knows. And I think that is a great sense of satisfaction I have. Many times, as I said, on one hand, though, I have various sleepless nights working for a company, working on a problem, but at the same time, it gives that sense of satisfaction. And on the other hand, I think there is also my presentation ended. So I hope you're not able to see my presentation, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, just now.
Yes.
Okay, give me a minute. I'm just going to share it again. Close that straight and I don't know what happened, but let's see if it works. Are you able to see it now?
Not now. It is visible, sir.
Okay. So I'm just going to move this. So I think what is coming in on the other hand, the clinical research program is huge. I'm sure most of you are aware. It takes anywhere between 10 to 15 years to drive that product right from its lab work to the animal testing and through human clinical trials all the way to the launch. And it's a long process, and in that long process, this molecule is touched by thousands of people. Those are clinical research professionals, doctors, patients, and if someone in that chain has not done a good job, you are responsible for, again, those millions of lives when this molecule gets launched and consumed by people. So if it is a substandard product, or if you are not able to manage your responsibility properly, and that's the reason you will see some of the products are recalled back from the market, because long-term toxicity, long-term not showing that efficacy. Ranitidine, I think you have seen one of the example. So I think what does that tell us? Maybe during that 10 to 15 years, someone has not done his or her job, and that's the cost of poor quality now we are paying. Which is causing, maybe instead of helping human life, it is actually causing those human lives in a negative way. And I think that's another area which I find more interesting about this role, wherein it is not just 9 to 5 job. You're doing something for the society in addition to earning your paycheck at the end of every month. So I think that's about me. And maybe if you have seen my LinkedIn profile, and I genuinely believe in this, what I myself called as an 8-watt analysis. And this is not just to clinical research. I apply it to every single problem in my life, be it related to work, be it related to my personal life, be it related to giving advice to any of my colleagues, friends, or somebody comes and asks for it. So you have. So if you look at right from number one, you have number of problems, in your professional career, in your personal career. So I think, one of my biggest advice is, when you have those problems, maybe in the work, I have 10 things to do and I just have 8 hours in my hand. So how I prioritize that? So you need to identify the right problem, and which is the high priority problem. And then, once you know that, you then meet with the available data. And when I see that, it can mean, for professional work, you gather the information from various sources related to that problem, just to see, is that still problem? What is, help that with the analysis. Even it relates to personal problem, like, for example, my 10-year-old boy right now, I have to select his schools around England, and I'm just collecting the data to find out which is the best school, what is his ability to, and then marry those two. So that's sort of in a step 3, you perform the analysis, and then, through that process, you see, what I can do. So for example, maybe just related to work, if I'm trying to solve some problem related to clinical research, I have the data, and from that data, maybe I get maybe just 10 solutions. But am I qualified to solve that problem by choosing one of the best solution? So what I can do, at the same time, are those solutions workable? And then go to find out that best solution, you implement it, ensure it is implemented correctly, and it is giving you the results. And I think that's sort of my way of 8-watt improve analysis, and I have found this quite effective. So let's now go and talk to the current topic, and what I'm going to cover some of the areas, before we touch to the artificial intelligence. I also in clinical research, I want to talk about what is this clinical research. And I think before talking about what is clinical research, I also want to talk to you about why clinical research is conducted at the first place. And then hopefully, I think, if we have some time, I also want to talk to you about what are the applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning in the education. And I think that is coming more and more relevant, especially with the COVID pandemic, where I have seen, at least in UK, most of the universities have gone online. So they are conducting classes online, they are conducting practicals online, and they have found a way to make it the same effective as it is. Of course, there is still that mindset where we feel it is not effective, but we are beginning to see that, yes, that can be done. It is just we need to think a little differently. So I'm going to talk about those topics. Now, before I think, I go ahead, I also want to say most of you are sort of pharmacy professional, and as I said, exercise helps productivity in work. I do believe this is the only profession in the current scenario which I see has not impacted, or in fact, fortunately or unfortunately, we have seen tremendous growth in this field with this current pandemic. If you talk about the airline industry, I have one of my friend who works in British Airways, and almost like, there are thousands of flights they have grounded for the last 8 months. And you can imagine the amount of loss. So even it to the extent now the cost of parking those flights is a lot higher than the cost of flight itself. And I think that's where the airline industry, hospitality industry, hotel industry, the tourism industry, you talk about the banking sector, the restaurants. I think everything has come to a standstill, and it is really unfortunate for us to sort of see that way. But if you look at, on the other hand, the pharmaceutical industry, I think there are, at least at this stage, I know close to maybe 80 to 90 clinical trials in the field of COVID pandemic have started working. So many pharmaceutical companies are eyeing on how we can help. Even in the UK, I have seen many pharmacists. I think they are helping their own ways, in terms of helping the government, going and supporting them, taking the nasal swab, helping with the testing, working in the pharmacy around the clock, because I think this is the time where there is also shortage of those medical paramedical forces. And I do believe genuinely, I think there is a lot to offer for by each one of us. And I don't think a particular country is just an exception. You can do that even in your present context, being in India. And just wanted to show you one example on the right hand side. This is, my elder son who has started studying mechanical engineering about just 2 months ago, and he's studying in this called Swansea University in Wales, South Wales, in the United Kingdom. And when I visited to drop him a couple of months back, I found this hand sanitizer, which was prepared and produced by the chemical engineering students during their summertime. And they had the lab, they had all the infrastructure in place, and they just went ahead and produced this hand sanitizer, which is now they are handing over to all the students as well as the city of Swansea. So and I think that is helping almost like protecting the lives. So you can just see the simple things like this has a lot of impact, and I think this is where the innovation comes. I'm just connecting back to what I said earlier. So now let's make this more interactive. I think I have spoken a lot, almost like for last 20 minutes. And as I said, let's focus, the clinical research, artificial intelligence, and why people die. So I want to make this interacting. So can somebody tell me what is the major cause of death? So, in terms of disease, which disease you think people are dying more across the globe? And I'm just going to take a pause here, and please speak up. Hopefully we can make this more interacting.
Is it diabetes, sir? Is it diabetes?
Okay, very good. Diabetes. And you think diabetes?
Cardiovascular diseases.
Cardiovascular diseases, okay. Any other?
Cancer.
Cancer. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Accident.
Accident. Very good. I like that. Any other answers? So I think we talked about diabetes. We talked about cardiovascular diseases. Somebody said accident. So yeah. Anything else?
Drug interaction.
Adverse drug
I'm sorry.
reaction.
Can you please come again?
Drug interaction.
Okay. Okay. Drug interaction. Anyone think about COVID as a major cause of death? I take that as a no. So let's see in under what I mean. I'm just going to show you some hard statistics across the globe, which is published by WHO, and they have sort of looked at which are the top 10 causes of death. And then if you look at this graph shows number of deaths in thousands, which occurred in year 2000 versus 2016. So this data is about like 4 years old. I think they will come with the new data towards end of 2020 or 2021. So it will be interesting to see how that works. But if you look at, I think somebody said, cardiovascular disease, and I think you are spot on there. So if you look at the ischemic heart disease, and I'm just going to use my laser. Give me a second so that. So you can see this ischemic heart disease, stroke. These are the sort of type of that cardiovascular diseases and number one killer across the globe. So if you look at the dark blue bar, that shows number of deaths occurred in year 2016, and the green shows 2000. So if you see the cardiovascular disease, stroke, the number of deaths have increased compared to 2000, compared to 2016. And I'm pretty sure, this figure will be a little higher, when we see this data in 2021. So if you look at, almost like 9,000, so close to like 90 lakh deaths occurred because of cardiovascular disease across the globe. So that's number one, and clear that. Then chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, asthma, COPD, lower respiratory tract infection, which is part of like COVID, you can say, but COVID is one of the reasons. But those are sort of, and then Alzheimer's disease, the dementia. And I think this is interestingly, we'll see the number of deaths occurred in 2000 versus 2016, they are going up. And that is also because of two reasons. One is the aging population is increasing because, and I think, we are getting better and better treatment. So that's why people are living longer. But that doesn't mean they are living longer healthier. They are living longer with some diseases at hand. And Alzheimer's is, I think, is one of the diseases which is mostly impacted, has impact to the elder population. I think in Indian context, you will see, most of those mental illnesses remain unnoticed, or we believe, that is a social stigma, and that's why we don't talk about that openly. And therefore, even though there is a prevalence of that disease, it is still underreported. But I think now I think with this next generation, people are coming forward, and we are seeing the impact of that, because people are living longer, as well as there is strong awareness. So those are, I think, some of the diseases, top 10 global causes of death, right from, again, interestingly, we'll see, you always think, and I'm glad nobody said HIV, you think, that is number one killer, but it is not. And I think even though you will see HIV deaths, related deaths, they were more in 2000 and they're less in 2016. And that shows, the clinical research or the better treatment available that are helping lives with the patients affected with HIV. Same way, preterm birth complications. So even if you think about, and if you ask your parents, maybe, and when sort of, maybe your parents were born, or your parents were born, probably I'm sure most of those births would have taken place at home, not in the hospital. And I think that comes with some birth complications, because of hygiene. And I think number of deaths were quite a bit in year 2000, and they are going down now because of better facilities available. So if you look at the top 10 causes of death, they are global, but at a regional level, there are some. So if you talk about like country like, African countries, or maybe, some of these Asian countries, the malaria is still, more prevalent. In some cases, because of hard water, you can see kidney. I think that is still sort of get prevalent. The cancer diseases are sort of, there are typical type of cancer, like, you talk about stomach cancer, or I think that there is also, you talk about the cirrhosis of liver, you talk about liver cancer. And I think it has also to do with particular type of eating habitats. So, some of these Southeast Asian countries, they eat a lot of what you call that, these food with, this Maggi kind of stuff. And I think usually that has a negative impact on your stomach, or, the rectal system. So there are more rectal cancers occurring in the Southeast Asian countries, just because, you tend to eat some of that food, you drink less, and that has impact on, which is not more prevalent in other parts of the world. Again, you will see that esophageal cancer, which is more prevalent again in Asia. And I think it has to do with maybe like tobacco chewing, or it has to do with, some of the raw, not the cigarettes or BDs, those kind of things. And I think that has more impact on Asia, but not in the other countries. So I think I just want to show you this disease pattern, just to show why clinical research is done and how it is important. And you will see, some of you, somebody said accident, and I think that is also a very good way. So those accident comes under the injury part. So you will see that road injuries, and they have become a bit more, unfortunately, in 2016. If you look at the WHO statistics, it also there are a couple of reasons. Maybe they have done some analysis. Younger children tend to, drive at younger age, and sometimes, they are not as good driver as you want to be, as well as, more people have started driving, and then I think the incidence of road injury has gone up. So just another interesting example. Now let's talk about the drug development process. And if I just, talk about a drug development process, I'm not going into that lot of details, but these are some of the concepts I'm pretty sure you are familiar with: the pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics. So whenever any new drug is born or synthesized, in the initial stages, these PK/PD are studied, and I think most important question, the efficacy part and the safety part, and that is studied through some of the laboratory assessments, quality of life questionnaires, the adverse event, serious adverse event, and the key question to answer here is, the risk-benefit ratio. If I'm giving some drug to the patient who is suffering from, say, cancer, the efficacy comes later. So when I say efficacy, we do not test whether that it is helping to reduce the cancer-related complication. The first question it's addressed: is it efficacious? Is it safe to give? Does it cause any other issues? And I think that is where you are currently seeing with COVID-related treatments. Some treatments are coming good in terms of stopping COVID, but unfortunately, I think they are not safe. And that's why I think this research is constantly ongoing to address that first question, how we can make sure the drug is first safe and then talk about whether it is helping to cure the disease. So I think that is the question which is addressed fundamentally in the field of clinical research. Now let's talk about how clinical research is evolving. Any idea in terms of when was the first clinical trial conducted across the globe? And maybe like you can, it's not a, I know it requires some knowledge, but any idea you think when was the clinical trial, first clinical trial was conducted? 1800, 1600, 1900, 1950, or 10 years back?
Some syphilis related study was there
Okay,
in 1800.
okay, syphilis. Okay, any other answer? Okay, so let's talk. And I think this is just to show you the first controlled clinical trial that was conducted in year 1747. And then this was not a planned clinical trial, but it was more, I think during those days, most of the transportation used to occur through, those ships. And once you are on ship, you are there almost like for 6 months. So, you are literally in the middle of the sea and you eat what is available on the ship or in the water around you, maybe fish. And I think this is where the captain of the ship, this captain, he saw there were many sailors or people on the ship. They had some skin diseases like scurvy. Now we know, and that skin diseases, and then he was trying to find what can be given to them, so that the captain just chose to give them whatever was available on the ship. So some people had cedar, some people had vitriol, some people had some vinegar. He gave some people the seawater, and he gave some people like oranges and lemon available, and some so dramatically during that process he found the the couple of patients who received oranges and lemon, they recovered well with that skin disease. And that's where we found it was almost like unknowingly he ended up conducting the randomized control trial, and he found that effective treatment, like yes, citrus food helped recovering scurvy. So this was, I think, the first clinical trial, and the 20th of May is conducted as the World Clinical Trial Day in the name of this person. And again, as I said, like these are the ethical questions we try to answer. Like is the drug, is the clinical trial ethical? Is it safe? Before we answer the second question, whether it is sort of efficacious in helping to treat that disease. Maybe like I think these are some of the guidelines, and probably like I'm not going to touch on that now, but the clinical trial related guidelines, especially those who want to make the career in clinical research. These are the guidelines like the ICH GCP International Conference on Harmonization Good Clinical Practice Guideline. And these so any pharmaceutical company who follows these guidelines, they can register their product anywhere in the European region, almost like anywhere in the world, because then the major market like European region, Japan, UK, and Europe, the regulators have sort of confirmed anyone who follows this guideline, they will not ask that pharmaceutical company to conduct additional research just because now they want to market their product, say, in another country. So they will treat that that yes, it is the same standard applied, and that is okay for them to approve that product. So if you look at the US FDA, they have their own guidelines. Then the European Medical Agency, the UK MHRA, and then PMDA, which is the Pharmaceutical and Medical Device Agency in Japan. But as I said, like all these guidelines are incorporated into ICGCP guideline, which are sort of commonly followed by any pharmaceutical companies across the globe. Again, I think now let's switch the gears towards the artificial intelligence part, and I think this is where I will spend maybe much of my talk now. There has been a lot of transformation in the clinical research. So the early 80s model, wherein many pharmaceutical companies, they were developing their capacity or capability, in terms of, yes, we have huge manpower, we have huge laboratories, and that is our asset. But then I think towards 1990s, wherein the cost of clinical research, everyone started seeing going up. They tried and found, what are the ways to make it more efficacious. In terms of, when I say efficacious, how we can increase the productivity and speed of clinical research. And then it turned into year 2000, the sort of how we can reduce the cost. And now, I think now and the future, how we can sort of put all that together and make the use of some of these innovative techniques, and how we can use things like, you may hear, risk-based monitoring, adaptive trial design, or virtual trials. So nowadays, trials are conducted without patient being visiting the hospital. So everything is happening over sort of by use of technology. So you have a informed consent process taken over, not over telephone, but through a secure device. They pay quality of life questionnaires. People are filling their quality of life questionnaire using smartphone. Their laboratory parameters are assessed. Even we have some of those apps which are helping some of the patients, like the mental illnesses, or the Parkinson's disease. The app actually tests, how, if the patient has improved. So some of those techniques are coming up in the field of artificial intelligence. So again, this is just a paper. Actually, I helped one of the pharmacy student to present this paper, I think, in a couple of conferences. We will talk about this more, but you will see there are a lot of applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning in the field of clinical research as well as in the field of medical science. And before I go and talk more on the artificial intelligence and machine learning, I just want to take a pause again and ask you a question. Can somebody tell me what you know about artificial intelligence and machine learning? And again, there is no right answer or wrong answer. And please rest assured, I also am not 100% familiar, but yeah, please go ahead.
Design some novel molecules, sir, on some targets by mimicking the human intelligence, sir.
Okay. Okay. Can you give some? Are you able to elaborate a bit more on that?
Sir, by using the computational tools, by using the certain of the softwares, we could draw a molecule, and we could make the molecule interact with the molecular targets, and we could like something like a docking, and we study the energy relationship, and based on that we could make that molecule on wet lab, on a lab work, and we can go for a screening. So the outcome will be because of the result of the machine learning process, no, sir?
Okay. Okay. So I think what you're trying to say, like, you stimulate that environment in the lab to see how this molecule will behave in real life. And then through that process, if I hear you correctly, you, instead of, sort of spending, developing 10 molecules and then realize maybe only one is working, you do that work in the lab, find out that one or two molecule, and then, sort of reduce that span. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We could reduce the time frame, sir. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Any other thoughts on what do you mean by artificial intelligence, machine learning in a layman term? Okay, now let me give an example, and I think this is something I'm going to make it very simple. And there is a lot of myth about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and I think what you said is absolutely correct. So you're spot on. But at the same time, I think we must remember artificial intelligence, machine learning. I think they work on some data which is fed into the system, and then we develop certain algorithm. And who develops that algorithm? So still at the back end, there is a human brain which is working and telling machine how to behave. And then machine does that lot of computing. So you do not have to sit and do that maths. So machine does that part, but it does not take away that human brain. So again, always remember, and I think this is sort of my own opinion. I always see people are saying maybe like maybe in future all the jobs will be taken by machine. Partially it is true, but not 100%, because you still need to tell machine how to behave, and that part comes from your human intelligence. So if I give you an example, let's talk about like if you drive on the road, you have now this Google Map, or you have the satellite navigation in the cars, which, so if I just say like if I if I'm driving say from Mumbai to Delhi, it will tell me how much is the distance. It will tell me how long it will take to reach there, and so that's sort of an artificial intelligence part. So then it is tracking traffic. It will tell me, okay, like there is a diversion, there is road construction going on, so you should take the diversion. So all that is happening because of the data is available, and the machines, they're using that data, and then they're telling you which way you should go. It will also tell you how long. So that is part of an artificial intelligence. Now, what is that machine learning means? Now, let me give you another example, and I think this is every Friday at 5 o'clock, I go and drop my son for his cricket class, cricket session. So and then when I sit in my car, my car would tell maybe like it will take maybe 30 minutes to reach to the cricket field. And so that is the part of artificial intelligence. But what happens over a period of time when that machine knows every Friday at 5 o'clock, this person goes in this car, and this car goes to that cricket field, which is so now that when I go that 2 or 3 times, then machine will know that this person is using this car every Friday at 5 o'clock to reach that field. So the moment the next Friday comes at 5 o'clock, it will tell me on my sort of my app saying that you are going to this place, and it will take about 25 minutes. So this is where the machines are now learning from the data which is fed into the system, and it will tell you, it will remind you. So it is like, so that is called as machine learning. But when you go on the road, then that is called as artificial intelligence. But sometimes it is not like 100% accurate, because if the some of the data is not populated. So for example, if there is suddenly road construction going on like as of yesterday, and if that is not updated on Google Map, it it will not show up on your map, and it will still show you go through that path. Maybe once it gets updated, maybe like the next day it will show you that. So I think that's the difference, or maybe like in layman's language, the what is artificial intelligence and machine learning. Any questions on that before I move ahead? Okay, and I just want to make sure I'm not talking to myself, so you are still there to and listening to me.
Yes, sir, we are there.
Okay, good. Let's now, what I want to talk, as I said, like, this is just maybe slightly different slide, but I think I just want to show you, how this field of innovation is going up. And as I said to you earlier, if you focus, like, there were a lot of revolutions, I think you may have studied in your history, but in how that relates to economy, how that relates to innovation, and how that relates to artificial intelligence. So if you look at in around like in year 1600, 1780, there was a lot of agricultural production in Great Britain. And if you remember, I think around that time, the Great Britain used to rule, I think, most of the countries around the globe. So they're getting a lot of the cheap labor. They had a lot of land, and then they used that labor to increase productivity, land productivity. So you had a lot of farmings, not only in Britain, but in all the countries where British people used to rule. And that helped in a way, increasing that agricultural production. But it was more of a manual work. And then, if you look at the graph on the left, this is, I think, the person Kondraev, he is one of the great economists in Russia. And he sort of developed this hypothesis, which is very true, and you will realize, the prediction that he made is coming quite relevant. So in when that lot of production, the labor, the agriculture production was increased, then there was an industry revolution in 1780 to 1830, whereby this lot of mechanical things came in. The textile commenced. the lot of sort of use of iron or the iron related machineries came in, and there the transition from that labor to manufacturing process it started. So instead of people work in the farm, how we can make use of, say, like those machineries like tractor to help reduce that labor related cost, and at the same time increase your productivity. That is an area where there was an increased use of steam and water power. That is an area where population also started growing quite exponentially. And then, so that was sort of, the industry revolution. Then if we talk about the technical, the second industry revolution, which was in 1880 to about 1940. And I think that is an area where you will see the third contrast wave, the electricity, chemicals, or the use of combust engine or electric related electric engineering related innovation came up, and that was sort of the third sort of wave you will see there. If you look at the number 4 year in 1940 to close to 1985, and that is where the scientific or technical evaluation came in force. And I think there people are started realizing how technology can progress, new innovation. So you will see some of the example, the petrochemical, electronics, the aviation, space engineering, automobile. I think those are the areas they started growing up in those years 1930 to 1970. That was sort of the, you can say, maybe the fourth type of revolution. And then you will see the next one, which is sort of, we are still living in that world, 1970 to year 2010. Most of the digitalization, software, IT, the biotechnology part, it started growing up because, now you have more population, you have technology. So how we can make use of that and, make better place for everyone to live. So, and that is some of that is still ongoing, and you will see, I think, the next prediction, which is quite honestly coming quite true now. So from year 2010 to 2020 or maybe 2050, the robotics, artificial intelligence, renewable energy, the nanotechnology, radical resources, the cloud computing, genomics. And I think these are the sort of areas of future for anyone to sort of make career in. Now, I think if you see most of this revolution, those peaks, and if you see before that peak, there was something happen in the global economy. So you will see before that second steam power railroad, there was a panic attack of 1837. So, a lot of people, I think there was a crisis, same thing. There was a long depression in 1873 to 1879. There was another Great Depression in 1929, and I think those were contributed either by those World War or because of World War II, World War II, one, and then also you will see there was financial crisis in year 2007. So there was sort of depression in each of that, but after the depression, economy revolved, and I think that is where there is an hypothesis that it made people to think differently. So if you see down on that bottom right. The year 1770, it was year of steam. So you have a lot of steam power being used. Then there it was train, which is of electrical. Then it was electricity, which was the era of oil. Then there was the period of cars. Then there were like the period of chips, microchips, and now I think there is going to be year of robotics, and I think this is where you will focus now how that relates to clinical research. So if you look at the concepts, and I think these are some of the predictions how the world is going to move towards. So if you look at this artificial intelligence, machine learning, the future application, the number one is autonomous driving. And it is, when I say autonomous driving, it is just not about automatic car. And I think they are already there in Europe, some parts of Asia. So you are literally like an automatic car. You sit in the car and then it will drive to your destination. It will park on its own. And I think they use a lot of this data. At the same time, you will see like the companies like DHL. They use this autonomous drones to ship sort of medicines from one place to another place. So the Amazon is using that autonomous driving to sort of shift some of the essential things from one place to another. And right now, I think this is where you will see there are some case stories where a person had a heart attack or a major accident on the road, and that it was in the most remote place, but because of the technology, the doctors were able to sort of send the drone to the to that place, and that drone had a camera, and they assessed that patient. Then sort of they were able to lift that patient through the air ambulance. By the time patient reached the hospital, they know exactly what has happened to that particular patient, and whole the setup was ready in the hospital to treat that patient. So I think these are some of the applications of this autonomous driving, not just sort of making those autonomous car, but also in the healthcare industry. If you look at the second, and I think this is more relevant to us, number 2 prediction, which is the predictive or precise medicine. You may have seen a lot of these applications on sort of mobile device related to like those Apple or Android. They can check your exercise. They can also see and say for example you are supposed to take at least 10,000 steps a day. If you take that, then it will tell you, yes, your lifestyle is not sedentary, how much calories you burn. And then because of that, it will also tell you maybe if you continue with that lifestyle, you are less likely to have any of those diseases like hypertension, blood pressure, things of those nature. Even there is also like precise medicine, and by using the genetic pattern, there is a lot of research ongoing now. You make those personalized medicine. So based on your genetic pattern or your family history, if your parents had say stroke, your great grandfather had stroke, then possibly maybe like there is likely chance that you may have stroke. So therefore then either you change your lifestyle, or basically those medicines are customized for you, and that is what is called as predictive or precise or precision medicine. And I think that is the world. I think that is an area where things are moving now. Now, I think, as I said, the good part here, on one hand, you will feel as a pharmacist, you do not have knowledge of the technology. But I think the most important part, what I said earlier, it is not just important to know the technology. I think you need to have knowledge of the domain expertise. And when I say, unless you know the biology or pharmacology better, you cannot you cannot combine that with technology and then make the things work in the betterment of health. You need to have domain expertise first, and then if you tie that up with the technology, you can make some of this innovation work. And I think this is where pharmacy profession, like people like you can play that part. And quite honestly, I think some of this technological part, it's not that difficult to learn. As I said, and I will give you a couple of examples. Hopefully we will have some time just to show you how the technology is helping to make the tomorrow's education a lot better, just with some common sense. So this is sort of one of the concept of artificial intelligence in predictive or precise medicine. Yes, please go ahead. Yeah, if somebody had a question. Okay, I think I'm just taking that as maybe it was a sidebar conversation. So if you look at the another aspect right now, there are many of those radiograph films which are read by a radiologist, and then based on that they're detecting sort of how the the extent of say damage maybe through those various scans, and then predicting what kind of treatment they need. Then you look at the other parameters such as the hematology, biology, or the blood test. You also look at history, and then you come up with some better medicine profile for that individual patients. So these are some of the innovations being tested. Some of them are already being practiced. The robotics you will see right now, there are also talks about robotic surgery. Many times nowadays, especially with COVID pandemic, we have some examples where patient suffered massive heart attack, and patient now doesn't want to go to the hospital because he is feared by visiting hospital he will get infected with COVID. So in such situations, with the use of technology, doctors are still able to see that patient and at least guide him what to do before that patient reaches the hospital, because in those cases every single minute counts. So I think these are some of the applications. If you look at another application of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and it is called as computer vision. And you may have heard natural language processing, the NLP. This is where when you speak, your voice gets recorded, and the way you speak, say in any language, Hindi, the way Hindi is spoken in Maharashtra versus the way Hindi is spoken in Uttar Pradesh. I think there is slight variation. So computer will sort of look at that, and as well as it will help in translating. So the way word get translated in even in Hindi in different region, it will help based on that profile to make sure then the translation is accurate, which is helpful, say in various translations like in clinical research, the informed consent process. Some of these the voice recognition is also nowadays used to unlock some systems, like nowadays when we have here in the UK, if I have to call if I have to withdraw some money or inquire balance, I can do by sitting at home. I don't need to go to the bank. Even I don't need to go to the ATM. I can just sort of and I don't need to remember my password. I just call up that helpline and I just say like a few words, and then that voice recognition will remember remember that yes, it is me, not somebody else. And then through that two-factor authentication process, it will allow me to sort of enter into the system. So that's sort of computer vision. You also have like the Amazon, they are using that to autonomous shopping. So basically, I think in their one of the city in the US, and I forgot the name, I think it's Phoenix or somewhere, they have almost like they tried out, you can go into the shop, you can buy anything that you want, and as soon as you buy, the trigger will be sent to the system. It will connect to your smartphone saying that maybe you have taken 2 liters of milk, maybe you have taken a couple of medicines, and as you go out of the shop, it will deduct automatically money from your bank account. So that's sort of I think the future of application related to computer vision. You talk about the another application of artificial intelligence in extended reality, wherein nowadays, especially if you have to buy a house, or if you have to buy, if you have to rent a house, you physically cannot go there, maybe because of pandemic, or if you have to buy some furniture and you just want to visualize how that furniture will fit into my house. And I think this is where the extended reality or virtual reality will come in force. So if you see on the left hand side, this is the picture of IKEA, which is one of the major furniture sort of manufacturing company. They have their app, and if you want to buy a sofa, as you see here, you can just look at that sofa, and probably like you also have a house, so you can really imagine how that sofa will look like virtually. And by that way, you can make the decision. You don't need to go to the shop to sort of see that. And as well as you don't want to realize when you bring it back home, it is not fitting properly. So all that you can do it. Same thing, you can also look at the Rolex. If you see Rolex, they have started, you can just use their app and then choose that app. It will show you exactly how that watch will look like on your hand. So that is the way, again, you can visualize that is part of virtual reality. On the left, you can also see, especially for those elderly people here in UK or United States, they have those sort of chairs which they attach the staircase. So for elderly people who cannot use the stairs to climb, they can visualize how that chair will fit in. Will I have proper space? So that is another part of application of extended reality. You may also, I think, have seen recently there was a I think it was from Microsoft. They launched whereby you can also make use of they call it as a hologram. So say, for example, if I speak in English and I also want at the same time my voice is heard by people who do not understand English, but they understand, say, Hindi, they understand Marathi, the hologram technique, they will exactly show the person, but in the voice of that local language. And then this natural language processing will automatically translate that voice from English to Hindi. And I think that technology has come up. So I think there are a lot of those applications of artificial intelligence. And this is something related to the banking sector, the blockchain technology, whereby how you can make those secure transactions. Or, like, for example, if you have your important courier or even like the Airbnb, which is or the Uber taxi. So if you want to authenticate the driver, how you can do that. And this is the blockchain technology whereby you do that secure transaction. That the person you're dealing with is authentic by using this blockchain technology. Few other applications of artificial intelligence you will see on the left hand side: 3D printing. again, I think this has great application. So, for example, if we have to make some prosthetics or, maybe artificial limb, artificial hand, or some hip replacement surgery, you look at, how much size, and through that 3D printing by layer, you can make those things exactly of the same size by using this 3D printing. Robotic process automation, as I said, like, in terms of that is also coming a lot. Again, taking an example of Amazon, they are able to distribute those, sort of essential things like medicines through robotic process. We talked about natural language processing, digital twins or Airbnb, Uber. As I gave one of the example, like, when you want to buy a house, or when you're going for a vacation, if you want to look at what is your sort of hotel look like, what is your room look like, that's the technology they use it. And at the bottom, the nanotechnology or material science, and I think these are another two fields which is closely linked with the pharmacy. They're also coming quite sort of prominent. So some of the examples of nanotechnology, things like how we can extend the battery life, or and therefore make battery last longer. Even right now, the solar energy, I think how we can have the self-generated energy. You talk about these cloud computing, where, as I said earlier, you are able to calculate things a lot faster than doing that manually, and then help machine to give you some solutions to make the right decision. So these are some of the examples of, maybe I know I gave you sort of a broader overview, but I just want to take a pause there and see if any one of you have any questions before I talk to you, walk you through some of the artificial intelligence technique in education and how that can help. Any questions? And I just want to make sure you still are with me and I'm not talking to myself.
Participants, you can raise your questions.
Okay, so I know there's a lot of information, so I will move on, but if you have any questions, please do stop me. What I want to talk now, again, switching back, I think we talked about, why people die, and therefore why clinical research is done. We then looked at how clinical research is done, which are the areas where clinical research is done. Then we also talked about which are the guidelines of clinical research. We then talked about how artificial intelligence has application, not just in clinical research or medicine, but various other fields, which are the. And now I just want to, like, for pharmacy profession, I'm just sort of looking into, there's a lot of shift in the global clinical research. And if you look at the clinical research prior to year 2000, only 5% of clinical research was done in Asia. And again, when I say Asia, even just you put Asia has top 3 countries who carry the largest population. So India, China, and Indonesia. These are the sort of top. This comes under top 5 countries of population, and if you just put population of all these 3 countries together, like 1.2 billion India, 1.2 plus for China, and Indonesia close to, I think, 0.3. So we house close to like 35 to 40% population of the globe, and you can imagine, even though we have 40% population of the globe, we are still contributing to 5% of clinical research. And I think, and on the other hand, if you see the population of United States, which is like 300 million, very, very insignificant compared to India population, maybe just 2, 3, or maybe 4%, and they are contributing to 50% of research. So, and I think that is changing now, especially like, with and I think India has a better advantage because, the English speaking population. So that is going to bring sort of a lot of opportunity. So the clinical research, if you see from 5%, it is already at 25% in Asia Pacific, and that is going to go up. Now, what does that mean? This will mean more clinical trials will be conducted, and that also mean there will be a lot of job opportunities. And I think this is not stopping here. As I see, this will go up, and I won't be surprised. This 25% becomes 50%. And I think quite honestly, this is where India has even more advantage, because most of our, I would not most, all our the professional education like pharmacy, medicine, nursing, it happens in English, which is not the case in some of the European countries, like even country like China or Japan. They still get studied in those local language. So that is advantage number one. We also have population. And I think quite honestly, on another side, I think we have learned to live in a hard way. So I think we also have ability to work hard, which quite honestly, I don't see in other parts of the world. So I think those are some of the advantage that, you are sitting on. And if you just look at, there is a prediction almost like, in future, 95% of clinical studies, they will have the Asia Pacific arm included. And because again, if we have 40% population in Asia, this is also a big market to pharmaceutical companies. So they want to make sure the clinical trials are conducted in that population to help, getting that broader view of how the molecule behaves to each of that region. And just to give you idea again, in terms of, I talked about COVID. So currently there are a number of clinical studies, and this is slightly outdated slide, but some of the two prominent companies, and you may have heard of the AstraZeneca in collaboration with Oxford University and Johnson and Johnson. These are the two prominent vaccines being tried on the COVID. And there are many other treatment related studies, like Takeda is conducting something, Eli Lilly. But I think the treatments, treatments are being only tried with the existing medicine, not with the sort of newer medicine. So things like, there are some HIV related medicine like, remdesivir, that is Gilead Pharmaceutical. They are trying to see if it works in COVID. But currently it is being used for HIV treatment. But I think if you talk about the real vaccine, I think those are the two companies where there is a ray of hope that that will help bring that vaccine into market. But I think another big challenge, we need that vaccine for 7.2 billion population, and there is no manufacturing facility anywhere in the world who can produce that vaccine in a couple of months. So of course, I think we have some of the biggest capability of producing vaccine in India, with this Bharat Serum, or even I think the Serum Institute. There are a couple of facilities in Vietnam. I don't think those are still enough to produce that vaccine once the trials are effective to help all the world. It will still take some time to get that last person vaccinated on the earth. I think that we talked about that. Now let's see what are the career opportunities in clinical research. And if you look at the field of clinical research, one can start the career, as I said, right from the clinical trial assistant, the core clinical operation. Then they can rise within that, sort of managing hardcore operation or sort of project management. One can switch to sort of regulatory affairs, wherein you can understand those regulatory environment, make sure the data is provided to the regulatory agencies in the right way. Medical services, so especially somebody with a medical background, they can make career in medical services, giving advice to the doctors who are conducting clinical trial to make sure the patients are getting right type of advice. Business development, which is the marketing arm. At the hospital sites, even one can be a clinical research coordinator, making sure the data is entered appropriately. The pharmacovigilance, drug safety profile, I think this is where also pharmacy people can make career. The data management, biostatistics arm, the quality assurance. And I think these are various fields. And just to give you an idea, the total clinical research workforce globally, which is held by the top 10 clinical research organization. So it is around like more than 2 lakh. And I think this is just the top 10 companies who are conducting probably 40% of clinical research. And to give an example, maybe like companies like IQVIA, Covance, almost like close to 1/3 or maybe 1/4 of their workforce is now located in India. So just to give an example, when I started in Quintiles about 24 years ago, we were about like in '96 we were about 10 people company, and now And at that time, 10 people, but across the globe, Quintiles had close to, I think, 6,000 employees. So 6,000 versus 10 people. And now, IQ has close to 60,000 employees, but out of 60,000, I think close to 22,000 employees are just located in India. And I think that is just, I'm translating how that, workforce is shifting to some of the cost effective countries like India. And that is helping to generate sort of more jobs. And also, I think, that will also give you that more global exposure. And this is just about the clinical research industry. But if you look at the pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer, GSK, Biogen, they have, I think, some of their biggest offices in India, and they are also generating a lot of job opportunities. There are many universities also investing heavily in the field of clinical research, artificial intelligence. And also, I think, some of the medical universities, they are investing. And I think the good part is, some of these doctors who participate in clinical research, they're also getting exposed to the latest trends in the industry, as well as, the diseases where there is no treatment available. There is a chance that, someone will get that better treatment early enough. So that's the sort of a job opportunity. Now I'm looking at my watch. Probably we have another 12-13 minutes, and I want to talk to you very quickly on the how artificial intelligence and machine learning is being used in education. So I have sort of, I have looked at one of the sort of company and how they are using that. So I just want to show you in real life how they are being used. They are using in sort of educating people, despite without having a need to learn in a classroom type of environment. But before I go to that, any questions, comments that you want to ask? And I'll take a pause here.
Participants, please raise your questions.
Okay, so it looks like you're still shy, but I will go ahead. What I want to do, and this is my last part, I just want to show you, how this artificial intelligence and machine learning is used in education. And I just want to give you a quick snapshot again in the clinical research. And that doesn't mean like, this is just limited to clinical research. I think it is being tried out in every single universities now. So, in the clinical research, as I said, we have this number of guidelines, like, by various regulatory agencies. There is guideline like, you talk about ICH-GCP, which are the consolidated guidelines from all these top regulators of the globe. Then you have guidelines from, the 21 CFR, the United States. You have guidelines from Japanese regulations, the UK regulations, the European. On the top of that, there are also these GDPR, the data protection guidelines, the HIPAA regulations you may have heard of. This is becoming more relevant, especially in every single industry, how you protect patients' identity or even everyone's data. Like, if I'm making some secure transaction in the bank, how to ensure my password is protected, my money is protected. So that is the information. And then there are, various these pharmaceutical companies, CROs, they have their own best practices. There are various set of non-governmental or the pharmaceutical company consortium, such as the Transcelerate Biopharma, AHOKA Quality Consortium, the CTTI Clinical Trial for Confirmation. So they are coming up with a lot of information, and I think it is very difficult to digest that information. So if you look at, and I think on the top of that, the regulators are also inspecting the data. They come up with a lot of findings, so they have their databases available. So what does that tell? Like, the current scenario, there is rapidly changing regulatory environment, the regulatory industry changing. The drug development is also changing quite fast. Like, there is like we want speed, we want cost efficiency, and we want highest quality. So take example, as I said earlier, the COVID treatment or vaccine, we need it, and every single day delay in production of that vaccine means, almost like hundreds or maybe thousands, if not more, people are dying just because there is no treatment available. And I think that's the current scenario. We are also having a lot of big data, as you see here, but how we make that big data work to make it digestible and effective so that next generation can learn. And as I said, like, there is a shift of clinical research from west to east. And again, if you look at right now, I know I think some of you are sort of, teachers in the pharmacy institutions, university or colleges. So the way as I would like to think, just we try to teach or educate people, and I think that is also applicable to me. I try to educate my son in the way I studied myself 25 or 30 years back. And that doesn't work because today generation is different. So you have generation silent in 1700, baby boomers, and now generation Z, which is the generation probably I think some of you fall into. And I think you are more into that, sort of use of app, mobiles, smartphones. So how we can keep them engaged, through that technology, and at the same time channelize their energy for the right reason. And I think this is where we are making use of the sort of artificial intelligence. So if you look at this, I'll quickly go through that company, and I'm just going to share my internet browser. So madam, if you can just tell me in a second, if you can see my internet browser, that would be great. Can you see my internet browser?
Not now.
You cannot see now?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm going to reshare my screen. Probably I'm not sharing whole my desktop, so give me a second.
Yeah, I think you need to share your desktop.
Yeah, so hopefully it should come now. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I think this is just sort of a company, and I think they're seeing how online education can be made in the clinical research field. So as I told you, there is a lot of this knowledge. So how effectively you can learn that knowledge. Just give me a second. I'm going to cookies understood, and I'm going to make this small. Sorry, I think I'm working from home, and now there's a bit of sun coming here. So okay. So you can see, this the lot of information, as I told you, is available, and then how effectively, this information can be learned by every individual. So there is a big data available in public domain, like as I talked to you about various guidelines, various laws, regulations, and with the help of artificial intelligence, deep learning, how one can learn effectively, and then connect theory to the practice. So rather than just mugging up the knowledge. What has been done? So you will see in this there is a uniqueness. So you learn almost all those regulations. You learn in an interactive, in a fun way, and this system, artificial intelligence algorithm, will also tell you if you are on the right path to learn the knowledge. And this will increase your employability in the field of clinical research. So what I'm going to do, for the lack of, I think we do not have a lot of time, but just wanted to quickly show you how it works. So I'm just going to log in. So any user who subscribes, I'm just going to. So can you, madam, see my screen with the
Username? Yeah, username. What
yeah,
you type, username, it's visible. That screen is visible, sir.
Yeah. So just think about, like, anyone who wants to learn clinical research, they once they subscribe. So basically you can see this is your talent profile. So there are almost like 15 areas of good clinical practice. So if you want to increase your employability skills, these are the 15 areas you must know. And I think if you know beforehand, that will sort of enhance your professional career. So things like the introduction of good clinical practice, the ethics, what are the responsibility of doctor, what are the responsibility of pharmaceutical company, monitoring responsibility, the documentation part, informed consent process. And then what this tool does, basically once you register, you have some practice questions. So just an example here. These are the questions, and the way the questions are built in, to make it fun. So for example, this is a question with multiple answers. So I'm just going to choose answer, say like, if I choose right answer. So I am just choosing, say, and then when I say I want to confirm it. So let's say, like, when I say now my answer is not correct. So that's why the system is telling me this is wrong answer. But if I want to know why it is wrong answer, in which section of that various GCP guideline I can find the answer. So you can read this, and the answer lies into this section. So actually, like by this process, you know which are the important. So if you look at this now, let's try another question. So if I try another question, so and hopefully I'll get this right. So if I just say no, this is again still wrong. I'm going to say this is again still no. Hopefully I will choose according to ISGCP. Again, I will try. So you will see, like, as now I will try and give right answer. So you can see now again, now the system is telling me that this is correct answer. And if I still want to know where this is written in that book, it will just show you that specific section. And I think that's where and at the same time, if you do not follow that, there is a inspection finding associated with that. So it will show that inspection finding. And as you keep on answering question, the dashboard will show exactly how you're progressing. So this dashboard, this is the consolidated dashboard. So it will start from red to green. And now it is showing me from the questions that I answered so far. I have answered 75% questions right in GCP introduction. So I still need to answer another 25% question. The second question I have answered 50% correct. So I still need to answer another 50. So it will. So what the system will do, the system, once you become 100% proficient in one area, the system will keep on throwing questions related to only the other areas. And I think that is how that artificial algorithm is working in the background. So it will just help you to sharpen your skills in the areas where you have not made much progress. And then so this is sort of, you will keep on doing that test. And once you achieve 100% proficiency, you can go and give the test in order to get your certification. And the test is also, like, given in two ways. You can have time-based test, or it is an open book policy. So you can refer to any book. So the idea is not to mug up the knowledge, but through that process, you will learn that knowledge and increase your employability skills. So if you again look at, these are the sections. So for example, if you want to learn, say, like, as a book classroom style remotely, you can start reading section by section. So one way to learn is, using that practice test and answer. And if you don't give the right answer, it can take you to the specific section. Or another way, you can start reading section by section here, like, now section 1 of ICGCP, it talks about, various terms used, glossary section. Then if I go to, say, another section, like 1.10. So this is the definition of blinding or masking. What does that mean? If I go to this another definition, sorry, then if I go to maybe another one, it shows in what is meant by inspection. If I go to maybe another section here, section 2, it will show me the principles of ICGCP, which are those, sort of 12 principles of ICGCP on which clinical trials are conducted. So, either you can learn this, or you can start practice questions, and through that process, you will acquire that knowledge. And then over a period of time, once you become 100% proficient, you can give the test. And the test is also sort of, you can refer to the book. And once you pass the test, you get that certification. So that's sort of, one of the application, and you can do this, on the desktop. You can do it on your mobile, and this will hopefully increase your employability skills. So just, I think, one of the application where you will see how the learning is made easy by using some of these concepts. And Madam, I think we have reached on the top of hour and a half. So I just want to take a pause here, but happy to stay online to take any questions if the participants have.
Yeah, I think I myself will like to know a few more things from you, sir.
Sure.
Like this GCP compass which you showed. So is this learning platform available free for everyone, or there are some fees or charges that are to be paid and then you can subscribe it?
Yeah, so I think there is something, there is something to learn for everyone. So I think there is a free test, which, I think first thing is, I don't think, everyone should go for this. If you really want to make career in clinical research, then at least like, by giving this free test, you will know exactly what is involved into clinical research. And, once you give the free test, the artificial algorithm will tell you at which level you should start. So there are different membership levels. So if you look at those membership levels, so ideally, I think I'm just opening that. There is something for the university graduate, which is sort of, the Compass Plus. Then there is Compass Pro for beginners or professionals. And, if you want to hone your skill, there is Compass Max. So what my suggestion is always, of course, there is something free available at the same time. There are also some reference links in case if you do not want to invest and just see. So there are reference links available over here, useful link. And if you want to get sort of professional accreditation, which will help you to sort of speed up your academic career, then you can sort of subscribe to one of the membership like Compass Plus, Compass Pro, Compass Max, and all that information is available here.
So I think this would be useful for this data, which is available freely along with the links which are provided for particularly and PG students.
Yeah.
Those who read the good clinical practices, those who are just in the process of learning of what are the different guidelines. So I think it would be a better tool for all such students.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. So are there any more such learning platforms available?
I know, I think there was another thing which is not related to clinical research, but there is something called as Coursera. So maybe let me see if I can type quickly. It is, I think, offered by the Stanford University, and they offer some of the courses. I think those are more on the sort of, leadership, time management. So you can see here, I think, yeah. So those courses are more like, on the massive open on learning course. Some of those are free. So you can always, I think, look at that, but that is more related to, personality, leadership, time management, communication, those kind of things.
Yeah, right. One more thing, while this artificial intelligence in clinical research, so are there any such softwares available, or do the organizations who are working in the clinical research area, do they use any kind of software so that say some clinical research is being conducted in some specific country or maybe in different countries, and say in some specific population, suppose some side effects or adverse effects are being reported with some one of the drug, and say if the same drug is now being tested, which you can call it as a drug repurposing. So will it say the data is being fed after the clinical research is in the process? So will it pop up with some side effects that at this particular dose, this side effect was shown in say Asian population or say in the European population? So are such facilities available as far as the clinical research is concerned?
Yeah, and I think very apt. So thank you for asking that question. And I think this is where, sometimes that when I say science, clinical research, science, domain expertise, if it is married with the artificial intelligence, and if you make this work, that is where you get a lot of insight. And I'll give you a couple of examples on that. And of course, because of the confidentiality, I won't be able to give you a lot of details. But there in clinical trial, we always talk about adverse effect, AEs. And many times, people get confused, and even including some doctors in adverse event and adverse reaction, they consider both same. And it is not that. So always, I think we need to remember in the field of clinical research, it is an experiment we are doing. So we do not know how the drug is going to behave to an Asian population, how drug is going to behave to European population, or to the populations, in some of those African countries. So, and I think that is where we had this one of the clinical trial, and if you see this clinical trial guidelines, it says that definition of adverse event means any reaction which may or may not have causal relationship with the study drug. It will be reported as an adverse event. So what does that mean? For example, if there is a patient who is taking clinical trial drug or sitting in a car, was driven by somebody else, but meet with an accident, and because of that accident, he or she was hospitalized. According to clinical trial guidelines, it should be still reported as an adverse event, even though it has nothing to do with the drug and patient was not driving. So, but this has a lot of relevance, and I think this is where many times some doctors misunderstand that. And what happened, this was a drug, a transdermal drug delivery system. So you are supposed to apply a patch for some of these Parkinson disease patients, and that patch will help you to release drugs slowly over a period of 1 week. So by that way, you do not have to take tablets every single day, which is quite inconvenient to the patient. So, but on the one hand, if you apply that patch, it remains on your body. But I think what happened, there were few cases where some of the patients who applied that patch, they met with an accident, and that accident was reported as a adverse event or serious adverse event. And I think this is where the when the data was analyzed, what was found, the patch, the drug which was getting released in the body, it was causing some amount of drowsiness. And the drowsiness, in some cases where those patients were actually driving vehicles, because of the drowsiness, accident happened. In some cases, the patient was not driving, but somebody else. So it was not related. But when the data was analyzed and linked with what was happened, the actual drowsiness was found as one of the contraindications. So, when you're taking that drug, you should not drive heavy machinery. You should not drive vehicle because it causes drowsiness. So you can imagine now how that helps. And at the same time, that drowsiness is not good while driving, but that drowsiness is required when the people are agitated, some mental illnesses, when somebody is, agitated, somebody has bipolar disorder. So in that case, you need to calm the patient. So you need that drowsiness. So this is how I think the science of field sort of helps in, making those right options. So something may not work in particular situation, but something will work in another. So this is just one example. The another example I'll give you, we had a very interesting case when we were analyzing the data. Almost like few percentage of patients were bitten by dog, and the dog bite was reported as an adverse event. Now, you will be surprised, what has to do with, dog bite and but then I think when the data was analyzed, I think it was found the time when patient took the drug pill, and that patient, the patient was out for a walk, and he was bitten by the dog. So when you look at the timing of dog bite and timing of drug intake, I think when the drug was taken, it used to secrete certain amount of hormones on the skin layer. It triggered that dog to bite. And I think that's where, that further development of the drug was stopped. So you can see, sometimes there is no relevance, but when you combine that data, you analyze it, you find some more meaningful insight.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Are there any questions, queries from the participant side?
And I see, I think there are a lot of close to more than 100 participants. So hope it is making sense to them, and don't be shy. I think, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I know, I think we have gone about time, but happy to stay on if needed.
Sir, I'm Azhar, sir. I have a question.
Sure, please go ahead.
Sir, now we are in the pandemic, COVID pandemic. So now the drugs are there in the various stages of the clinical trial, sir, as you mentioned. But the thing is, once that people recover from the COVID, they develop certain symptoms. Means there are certain problems associated with either respiratory tract or the renal tissues or some other tissues. So how these clinical trials will focus to address these problems, sir?
Yeah.
Do you have any?
Yeah, so very good question. I think this is, and I think this is where and I was just giving an example. So if you go on LinkedIn and listen to a small podcast from the WHO chief, Dr. Tedora, and I think there are actually some patients. I think one of that is nurse, another is doctor himself. And I think this is where now we are beginning to see that you recover. So maybe like, some of these, some of the existing treatment like remdesivir is being given, some other available medicines are given. So that is helping to cure the disease. But I think the challenge, there are three types of challenges. One is we are still yet to find out how this virus is behaving, because I think there are a lot of mutants coming in. So even if you look at just, I think yesterday, the Prime Minister in UK, he has announced another lockdown. So whole England is undergoing lockdown from this Thursday for a month. But at the same time, if you look at the number of cases have gone up exponentially this time. However, if you compare the number of deaths occurred now versus in April, more deaths were occurring, now they are not. So what does that tell? Probably either that virus has weakened, or probably people have started developing immunity, and I think to address your question, some people are getting relapse. So again, it is very difficult, and I think this is where the science of clinical research, they are trying to see first whether that drug is safe. So if it is safe, then to what extent it is efficacious? Is it efficacious in short term, or is it efficacious in long term? And I think it is very difficult. And to add to the complexity where Madam asked that question earlier, in terms of, sometimes I know, like even the normal drug, if you look at the dose of paracetamol or the dose of like ranitidine, which is maybe like, one tablet is sufficient for Indian population, but same tablet is not sufficient for the European or the person in the West. And why is that? Is because of the genetic pattern of us is different. It is also because I think if somebody is alcoholic, the drug requirement may be more than normal person, your body mass index. And I think even if you look at, and maybe there are a lot of hypotheses why in India we do not seeing that many deaths. So there was an hypothesis that some of this cholera or MMR vaccines, which all of us we had during our childhood, and I think that is mandatory, which is not mandatory in other parts of the globe. Probably some of that is working. Plus, maybe I think the immunity aspects for us. Maybe I think we shouldn't say that, but even it applies to me. We have lived in somewhat unhygienic environment. So how many times when I was a child, I used to go to school, play in with my friends. I hardly remember washing my hands. Come back, eat. So I think just through that process you have developed that better immunity, which is probably helping us. So it is very difficult right now, and I think that is where things are getting a little complicated. To what extent you have that COVID related long-term complications will last? Will it last for some population? Will it last for everyone? It is very difficult to say.
Yes, sir. Because the reason, sir, people are recovering, sir, but after recovering, there are certain complications with the tissues because of the death occurs.
Yeah. And I think there was another interesting study. If you Google, there was also hope, I think, which United Kingdom tried with the herd immunity. So the concept of herd immunity, you allow 60% of population to get infected and recover. And then once that 60%, and hopefully that was the hope, UK government was saying, you allow maybe elderly people to sit at home, they should not go out. Remaining 60% people, at some point in time, they will get infected, but once they recover, they will start protecting remaining 40%. Unfortunately, what is seeing now, the antibody which are developed, they do not remain strong forever. So maybe I think after 30 days, there was a research done in Imperial College London. After 60 days, that antibody, they are not as strong, and therefore there is a possible case of relapse. Again, we do not know whether that relapse will occur for every single or somebody who has strong immunity. And quite honestly, some of us may already have had COVID without noticing. It may have been asymptomatic because our immune system was strong, and we may have recovered already.
Yes.
There are some more questions from the participants. So I would call upon, Varsha Pokarkar madam wants to ask something. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, at the outset, thank you very much for that excellent talk. It was a very informative session that you have given us. So thank you for that. My question is that we are moving from one size fits all to personalized medicine. So in that situation, what role would AI play in developing personalized medicines?
Very good question, and I think that is sort of an excellent. So, and there are various applications. So, and I think this is where when I say artificial intelligence, machine learning concepts, they're very excellent, but they should not be applied in isolation. It should have a knowledge of domain expertise. So, what does that mean in reality? A person who is excellent in IT or artificial algorithm cannot develop precision medicine or precise medicine without having knowledge. So, for example, if basically in case of precise medicine, there are a lot of diseases which are like, genetically transmitted. Maybe like if there is a family history of diabetes, then there is more chance, the next generation will have diabetes at early age. If there is a history of stroke, possibly there is a chance. Probably like cancer, there are some type of cancer, not all. And I think this is where the importance of documentation, and I think probably there is something for us to learn in the Asian context. And I have seen in some of this Western world, they have like all those documentation, like in UK, NHS, the National Health Service, which is the healthcare system of UK. They have everything documented. So when I go to hospital, if I was admitted or if I was treated like 10 years back, if my father was treated, say 30 years back or 50 years back, they will have that all history. And if I go now, so for example, if I see like, if somebody says like blood pressure, they can immediately see, did my father have high blood pressure? Did my mother have high blood pressure? Did she had diabetes? Did she had, any other like case of stroke? And therefore, if they see like, then I think through that process, they are able to sort of, the artificial intelligence will develop that concept saying that, yes, maybe this person is likely to have stroke. Plus, the current lifestyle is quite sedentary. Like the people in the past, they used to exercise a lot, maybe either, because of work in the farm or because of commuting on bicycle or by walk. And now today generation, maybe like, we have, we sit in air conditioned office. You get out, you sit in air conditioned car, then you come and you sit in air conditioned office. So it's like the lifestyle has become more sedentary. So that has also added, that additional risk factor. So you add all of that, and I think this is where artificial intelligence, like, will develop. Maybe like this person has likely to chance getting diabetes much earlier, and therefore now, by looking at that history, probably like, this particular medicine will work, or in some cases we need to come up with some personalized medicine. And I think that concept of personalized medicine is still coming up. On one hand, that is good because you have the specific medicine for your use, but on the other hand, it is going to be more costly. So I think some countries in the Western world, the healthcare system is paid for by the government or by the insurance, so there is a much less of a cost problem. But and in the countries like where the healthcare system is yet to be developed, where patient has to pay for the treatment, this will take a little longer time.
Yeah, I think what you rightly put it, that in the Indian context also, having a health card for every individual is what is going to be very important if we going to talk about personalized medicine and genome mapping. I think these two things will give a lot of data and help in contributing towards better therapeutic outcomes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I think just to give another example, coincidentally, I do not drive that much these days because of we have started working from home. But just over weekend, I was just listening to an radio, and there is a society called as CRY, CRY in the UK. What does it mean? Cardiac rest in young. And what they have found, the children between 12 to 30 years of age, not children, people between, they are dying because of undiagnosed condition. And one of the real example, my distant friend, His daughter was playing basketball, and this is real example about 2 years back. She was playing basketball and suddenly she got restless and she just became unconscious. She was flown through air ambulance, but she died. And her body was kept in the hospital for almost 3 weeks. They were doing postmortem because she was absolutely fine, no history, nothing. Her both parents were quite healthy. She was healthy. They even did a lot of investigation, sometimes checking her mobile to see if there was anything else that they did not find anything. And this was, and I think there are almost like 10% of children in the UK, they are dying because of such condition, which is they call as undiagnosed related to heart. And they're doing some more research to see what is causing these people. Suddenly, doing that exercise and then you're no more. So you never, and I think, this is where now, because now they have found like most of that age group is impacted, they're doing a little more research to see what is causing that. Is that because of hyper exercise? Is that because of any maybe unhealthy food habits, or is that because we are eating a lot of food which is maybe junk plus which is artificially prepared, with some of whose parents are farmers, in most of the farm, they used to put that gobar, which is kind of not natural fertilizer, and that is more of an best organic food. And nowadays, we are used that urea or that chemical fertilizer. Probably that is not good for us.
Right. So this unknown factors, unknown in the sense not known to us, which are existing around us, but we are exposed to those factors unknowingly, I would say.
Yeah.
And those are the things which are, responsible for many of these outcomes that we are seeing, especially cardiovascular related, cancer related.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you on those inputs. Thank you.
Another participant has raised a hand. Rekha Zarak, ma'am. Ma'am, you can ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Good evening, sir. So my question is, machine learning important for artificial intelligence? Because this came to my mind in your lecture. Because in the pharmacy profession also, since this is an era where artificial intelligence is going on in all the spheres, so what kind of machines are again right now in the pharmacy field, and what pharmacists need to learn in this machine, so that and whether artificial intelligence and learning machines are the same? Yeah.
Good, and I think very good question. And I think that there are various terms which are used. One is we call as an artificial intelligence. Then you may have heard, of course, you all have heard about machine learning. There is third term which is called as deep learning. And many times people get confused between these three. And as I said, let me give that another example once again in a maybe layman's language. What is artificial intelligence means as like if I'm driving from one place to B, so and I gave that example. I usually take my son for his cricket class on Friday 5 p.m. I sit in the car, I switch on my mobile app, Google Map, and I say I want to reach the cricket field, which takes about 30 minutes. And then that map will tell me, now it will take maybe 35 minutes because there is a lot of traffic. And suddenly the traffic is lessened. It will show, okay, traffic has gone now, it will take 25 minutes. So that is what is artificial intelligence. So the machine is telling you, not machine is learning, machine is telling you that it will take the time, it will give you road traffic information if the data is available. So that is called as artificial intelligence. It is one of the branch of machine learning. On the other hand, machine learning is what? Each time now now machine knows every Friday at 5 p.m. Patil goes to this cricket field. So I have seen that last Friday. I have seen Friday before last Friday. I have seen two Fridays before. So it looks like there is a fixed pattern. I'm saying with this person that this person is going to this field every Friday at 5 p.m. So now let me tell this person before he asks me that today you are going to this place and it will take 25 minutes. So a pop-up will appear on my app as soon as I open my Google Map. It will just appear on my map saying that sir, it will take 25 minutes for you to reach to cricket field. What is happening now? Machine has learned that over a period of time, this person is going constantly to this place. So this is called as machine learning. So machines are slowly learning, and then they're telling me. So that's the machine learning. The deep learning is another concept where, then you put in some additional applications saying that, yes, maybe like, this Friday, every alternate Friday. So, one Friday I go for cricket class, another Friday I go for walk. Third Friday, again, I go for cricket field. So there is a pattern now. That is what sort of machine will try to learn, and then it will direct me. Okay, now it is time for you to work out, go. It is time for you to drive to the cricket field, so you go. So that's called as like deep learning. So over a period of time, so those are the sort of concepts. So if you look at that, machine learning is an umbrella, and beneath machine learning you have a lot of branches. You can call as an artificial learning. You can call it as a deep learning. And I think so that's now coming back to your question. It is very relevant, but very honestly, if as far as it works on some logic. So if you have knowledge of Excel, and if you know how to connect the dots, so what it does ultimately, in a simple terms, it collects all of that data, and then that they make that data to speak to one another, saying that it's 5 p.m. Mr. Patil, cricket field. Connect that at 5 p.m. That's what it does at the background. And that part, yes, it is little technological dependent. But what I really believe, if somebody is reasonably good in maths, it's not difficult to learn, because this is something in a pharmaceutical field. Just think about, like, if you have 10 molecules, and out of 10 molecules, one is going to work. You need to tell the machine, maybe like try this molecule, say on hypertension, try this molecule on blood pressure, but don't try this molecule on hypertension plus like another indication like dementia. Otherwise it will fail. And this part of developing that raw algorithm is not something can be done by a IT person. It will be done by a person who has domain knowledge. So therefore, I think most important part, in my opinion, you need to know is your science, and then you learn some of those artificial intelligence concepts. And I think it is not a rocket science, quite honestly, because if you look at that Google map, what they do, they just look at, okay, how many cars there on the road at this point of time. If the road is of 1 kilometer length, usually I see on that road maybe 10 cars, and now I'm seeing suddenly 1,000 cars. So therefore, then they just, okay, 1,000 cars, that means now there will be 100 times more time to reach the destination. And then they just do that computation. Now, if it takes 10 minutes, I'm going to multiply that 10 by 100, so it will take 10,000 minutes. So I think, my, again, humble advice, and it is, again, this is the way I look at, you should focus on the domain knowledge. If your domain knowledge is good, you learn this concept on the go, and then you apply only those concepts. Let me give you another example. You may have heard some of those Lean or Six Sigma concepts, and those concepts are really good. I respect those concepts, but I have my own views. Those concepts cannot work in every single industry. Just because you Lean Sigma, maybe I can produce, say, 10 cars in one day by using one machine. It is very easy to sort of put that concept, saying that I will increase my plant capacity. So instead of one machine, I'm going to put 100 machines. I will have 100 times more employees, and my output will be 100 times more. That perfectly works in an automotive industry, because it is less human dependent. But if you look at, again, the clinical research, or if you look at the medicine part, it cannot work that way, because just again look at the clinical research. It itself is an experiment we are doing. We are conducting clinical trial, and maybe after recruiting 10 patients, my protocol needs to be changed, and therefore now in a whole my next parameter is going to be different than what I planned earlier. Machines will not know that. But at the same time, you can apply some of the concepts, but cannot rely 100% on artificial intelligence. And therefore, you need that domain knowledge. Of course, that concept works well. And I think this is where I see a lot of struggle. Many times, people, like some of the technology technology giant companies, they're trying to develop some of these artificial intelligence technique. It does not work, unfortunately, every time in the healthcare industry. Of course, there is some improvement being thought of, but my personal opinion, you still cannot replace that human brain, because you need to tell that machine how to behave. Once it becomes standardized, then that is a different game.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. I think we have taken more than our scheduled time. So one more last question is actually coming in, but before that, can we take up that, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead. I think I still have another sort of 20 minutes or so before I have my next call, but yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So before I take up the next question, I would request all the participants to please put on your cameras so that we can click some photographs while the sir is answering the question for the answer for the last question. Participants.
Patil sir, please stop sharing the screen.
Okay, I will do that.
So that we can include you also in the photographs, sir.
Sure. Let me know. I think I have stopped sharing now, so hopefully.
Yes, sir. So I would request, let us take up this last question. Dr. P. Veeresh. Sir, you can ask your question. Dr. Veeresh, sir. Okay, I think there is some issue with the.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for providing excellent presentation on artificial intelligence and machine learning. I do have one doubt, sir.
Yes, please.
Is there any strong and weak artificial intelligence? If there, what is the difference between those two?
And madam, I'm sorry, I think there was a bit of disturbance maybe at my end. Would you mind repeating the question for me?
Yeah, sir, please repeat the question. I think there is some disturbance in the audio from your end.
Hello, madam.
Yes, please.
Am I clear now?
Not exactly, but let us see if we can get your voice. You can ask the question again, sir.
Okay. Sir, is there any strong or weak artificial intelligence? If they exist, then what is the difference between strong and weak artificial intelligence?
Yeah. And let me paraphrase your question. So I think your question is there a concept of strong artificial intelligence and weak artificial intelligence? And can you explain that, or what is the difference between that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very honestly, again, my knowledge into sort of artificial intelligence, machine learning, I don't think it is great. I learned that, as I said, I spend much of my time into hardcore operation. I'm a pharmacist. So most of these sort of IT concepts, Lean Sigma, artificial intelligence, I learn out of my own sort of a desire, and also through my younger son now, he's learning online education. My elder son now, he's more into that autonomous car. So, I learn from them as well. So I don't think there is something called as strong artificial intelligence or weak artificial intelligence, to my knowledge. I may be wrong. However, let me explain you, and this is where example of strong artificial intelligence is, maybe an ideal world, as I said, precision medicine, or you look at the genetic pattern and you make the medicine exactly suited for that individual. Or just I think 3-4 months back, I was attending this open university for my elder sons, and there was a biomechanics department, and they showed one of this Andy Murray, one of the famous tennis player. He had a hip replacement. So one of the student did PhD on the hip replacement. So what he did with the 3D printing, he looked at maybe like for the hip replacement, this person is going to play for another few years, how much weight that artificial hip should bear. And then he multiplied that by 3 times because assuming, and then at the same time it should not be a lot of it should not be a lot of weight. So you cannot make that out of iron, for example. So how it can be made with less weight, at the same time it should not corrode. It should last long, maybe 100 years, though that person is not going to leave. And through that modulation, they prepared artificial sort of hip using 3D printing and some of this technology. That was a best example of a good artificial intelligence. Now the weak artificial intelligence, and this is something I give many times example. In clinical research, you always, if you relate, like, maybe you have a lot of adverse event coming up, and therefore, use this artificial intelligence technique. Just because in the last 3 months, I have seen 300 adverse event in my clinical trial. So, you just extrapolate that in the next 3 months, I will see 300 adverse event. On paper, it makes sense, perfect sense, but it doesn't work in that way, because just imagine those 300 patients, they were they just had started taking medicine. So therefore, now, they in the next 3 months, they would have taken 3-4 doses of medicines. So their, pattern is different. Plus, as such, I'm moving from a summer to winter. So I will have maybe common cold. I will have maybe a chest infection just because of the change in the environment. So just because, through that artificial intelligence technique, assuming, because I had 300 episodes of adverse event with 300 patients in the last 3 months, I will have the same. If artificial intelligence will still conclude that, but that is completely wrong. And that is one of the weak example. And hence I was saying, that needs to be coupled with a domain knowledge. So the domain knowledge is, all the 300 patients are residing, say, for example, in UK or in the US, they are going to hit with hard winter. On the top of that, there are going to be COVID cases increasing. Plus, these patients are from, say, 30 to 45 years of age group. That means working population. So they will be going out. So there are going to be more chances. So you need to take those factors into consideration and multiply. Maybe another better way to do that, look at the incidence of a normal adverse event last year. If that was 600, you add that factor and then make that. So if you do not do that, which is what unfortunately currently happening, that is another example of sort of weak artificial intelligence application.
Okay, sir. Thank you for clarifying my doubt by quoting suitable examples, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And maybe like you may have seen there was an example, and basically one person, actually, if you put about 500 mobile phones in a shopping trolley, and that trolley was put onto the road, and suddenly that road was showing traffic jam. So how the artificial intelligence is working on not the number of cars moving on the road, but most of the cars had mobiles. So if they see a lot of mobiles at one area, it is considering that is equivalent to traffic, which is again not the case. If you want to fool the system, an intelligent brain can still do that. Of course, that is not good in a way, but you need to factor those things in those artificial algorithms.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful, wonderful session. Had a very fruitful discussion with lots of live and easy to understand examples. I think this would help all our participants to understand the concept as far as the artificial intelligence in the clinical research is concerned. So we thank you on behalf of Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Pharmacy, Kolhapur, for giving up your valuable time for this session, and we hope you extend your valuable knowledge in future also. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. And I think I must say, this has been pleasure. And as I said, it is my passion besides my work. I enjoy. So probably I may have done more than 200 such sort of sessions. Most of them were live. This year it has been through remote, and I've done that in India, in Singapore, in Vietnam, even in UK. I don't think still I'm a good speaker, but I think one of my hope through this, I'm hoping the future generation will benefit from whatever little bit I have learned, and it will make them better professional. One thing I just want to leave you with the thought, and I think it is very relevant. Probably some of you, those who are students, you always think, to become a better professional, you need to look good. You need to be good, fluent in English, and you need to have good dress on your body. Very honestly, I don't think all of that is true. You don't need to look good. You don't need to have good dress on your body, and you don't need to speak good fluent English. Even I think there is a reported research, 90% of language is through your body language, through your behavior. Only 10% is with the use of actual word. And probably I'm the example, probably when I started studying, working in this industry about 25 years ago, even the telephone used to ring near my desk. I used to run away from that, thinking how I will be able to speak to the person who is sitting in France, US, because they are better communicator. And then I was pushed to that, and then I realized probably the person whom I was talking in French, she was also struggling a lot than me talking in English, because that was the first time for her to speak in English. So I think the point I'm to say, if you have that, what is most important is the right attitude. The just yes, I'm going to make something work, and I will strive towards that. You will find the success. And I have sort of studied in a small village, and Dr. Bhatia probably would know how I was. I'm not saying I'm still different that, but I think with that determination, I still reached from there to here. And if I can do that, I'm sure all those 100 participants you are there, you can still, go from even further higher. It is just the dedication you need. And with that, I will stop here. So thank you very much. It has been really pleasure. And I think whenever I'm back in India, I really would look forward to interact with you in person.
Yeah, definitely, sir. We'll wait for the day when we can actually meet at our place. Thank you so much for your valuable time, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So, dear participants, we are ending with our session 3 for day 1. Tomorrow will begin at sharp 10 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Ma'am, one question, ma'am. Ma'am, am I audible? Ma'am?
Who is it, sir?
Ma'am,
May I know who is?
my name is Venkatesh, ma'am, from Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
Ma'am, what are the procedures to attend the assessment test, ma'am?
Yeah, so we'll update you with all the process on WhatsApp group. Are you there in the WhatsApp group?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Now only I joined.
Yeah, we'll put up the whole details on the WhatsApp. You can get the details from there.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. Fine, sir.